Yeah, go ahead, Nathan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Racing. This is going to be our first time going through this, and glad you came to join us. My name's Nathan Post. I'm a volunteer with SailMaine, and I'll let uh, Jeremy and Julian introduce themselves as well.
I'm Jeremy. I work for SailMaine as a coach, and I work on maintenance stuff for SailMaine as well.
Everyone, I'm Julian Fraze. I'm mainly here for tech support, but I am also one of the volunteer instructors with SailMaine. So looking forward to running through this with you guys tonight. I think I'll take the first couple of slides just to introduce us, give us the scene setting and how things are going to work. So just at a base level, who did we build this a presentation for? Who are we trying to reach? It's primarily, or it's inclusive to both skippers and crew. The stuff we talk about is good for everybody on the boat to know. Um, it's good for those who have sailed before, but are we say like racing curious or have plans to try out racing this season, maybe for the first time, maybe this they've raced before, but they want to understand better what was going on the boat. And this is sort of some background knowledge that'll help you understand as you're going around the course what the folks on your boat and other boats are talking about and thinking as they go around. And then there's a note, or there's the picture here of the racing rules of sailing. There's a new issue this year. A couple of minor things have changed. But we'll be talking about some racing rule numbers throughout the presentation. This in reference to this publication from US Sailing that carry the official rules. Um, just a couple procedural notes. We are looking forward to your questions and want to engage with you very much. For the sake of time and keeping ourselves and making sure we get through all the material, we'd appreciate it most if you sort of either hold your questions to the end or you can put them in the chat function. It looks like everybody's already on mute, so you understand how Zoom works. While we're presenting, it'd be best if you mute yourself just in case there's any background noises. When we get to the end of the meeting, we will like to have everybody come off on video and then off mute when you have something to say. There's a raise hand function, so if you have a question, just like sitting in a classroom, you can raise your hand. That's down at the bottom. If you bring your cursor to the Zoom window, there's React with a little heart down at the bottom, and then that's where you click on that, and then you can put your hand up like I've just done now. It should show you all that I have my hand up, and then you can lower your hand once we've asked your question. So we look forward to engaging with you. And yeah, I think you can get into the meat and potatoes here, Nathan.
Yeah, so we'll jump into it. First sort of question, why race sailboats? Everyone's got a different answer for that. From myself, really improving my sailing skills and also working with the team together. I just find really enjoyable and improving as a team on the sailboat. And I find that it's a great excuse to get out and sail when the weather is kind of so-so. If you've got a scheduled race, it's a little drizzly or whatever. I still have a great time out there, and it's nice when you've got that goal and that date set to get out on the water. So a bad day on the water is still better than a good day in the office. Um, Jeremy, add to that. What do you think?
So I think one of the primary reasons that I go out to sail is fun, right? Racing is fun. It's fun to be around other boats and have, like you said, my like sailing skills put to the test. I love the way that like being in a sailboat connects me to the wind and waves. And like the concentration that I have when I'm racing is like kind of a peak way for that to occur and me to feel locked in. And I love that part of racing. And so, what is racing? And it's completing a defined course as quickly as possible, right? So, uh, you're always checking your sailing instructions and seeing what the course is before you go out and trying to go around that course.
And how do we do it? Well, really, it's learn some basic strategy, rules, and tactics that we're going to talk about today or introduce you to today. Certainly, there's lots of books and videos, and you can go sailing with more experienced sailors and then get out there and practice. So, racing sailboats can be loosely divided into three different categories. Most of the racing that we will do is fleet racing, where there's many boats all trying to complete the same course at the same time. And the finishing order determines your place, where a first place finish gets you 1 point, second place finish gets you 2 points, and so on. Lowest points is good. And in some fleet racing, it's handicap racing, where your finish times are recorded and multiplied by a handicap factor, adjusting for the speed of different models of boats that are racing against each other, versus a one design where all the boats are nominally the same. There are two other variants on this that you'll see out there often. One is match racing, for example, in the America's Cup, which is one boat against one other boat. And in high school and college sailing, sometimes they do team racing, which is two boats on two boats or three boats on three boats or so on. That tends to be very tactical, and both that and match racing have modifications to the rules. But today we're going to talk about things in the context of fleet racing. So, as Jeremy mentioned, the objective is sailing the course. And the course will be defined in your sailing instructions or at the time of the race by the race committee, usually on the committee boat, both sometimes over the radio, sometimes on a signboard, or both. And the race itself will be defined by going around a set of marks, and those can be temporary inflatable marks, like the tetrahedron shown here, or a ball, most commonly, that are anchored temporarily to the seafloor, or government marks, like the one shown in the bottom right of the screen, and those can be green, red, sometimes they're yellow, typically as indicated in your sailing instructions. And then the chart here is one that CYC provides us for the inshore, Portland Harbor, Casco Bay marks that we often race around. And they've given each of those marks a designation, a letter or a letter combination, indicating, essentially naming these government marks for the purpose of defining race courses around them. So to give you an example, this would be a common race in our Wednesday nights. Depends on the wind direction, of course, but with the wind from kind of a south-southeast direction. Starting line will be set up roughly where that checkered flag is. And in this case, the course could be defined OGO. And what that actually is meaning is a windward-leeward course in this case, where we're going from the starting line up around Mark O, which is CO on the chart, downwind to Mark G, back upwind to Mark O, and then downwind to finish. So that's just an example that gives you an idea. And in general, we're going to assume port roundings unless stated otherwise. So they will tell us if we need to go around a mark, leaving it to the starboard side of the boat, but most of the time we leave the mark on the port side of the boat as we go around it. So what are we going to do today? We'll take you around a simple race course, point out some strategies, tactics, and important rules as we go. And there's 92 of those rules in that book. Don't worry.
We're going to quiz
actually
you.
need to memorize all of them.
Oh, Nathan, I thought we were going to quiz them on all 92 at the end.
For sure. So basically, there's 4 rules that you're going to want to have pretty well laid down in your head as you get out there. And these are them. Opposite tack, that is 2 boats meeting, one on starboard tack and one on port. The starboard tack has right of way over the port tack boat. And by the way, we will get into what each of these mean as we go along. I'm just going to quickly summarize it here, and you'll see more detail later. When 2 boats are on the same tack and overlapped, The leeward boat, that is the boat more downwind, has right of way over the windward boat, which is more upwind. When boats are on the same tack and not overlapped, the boat ahead has right of way over the boat astern. And when you're approaching a mark, defining a corner of the race, 3 boat lengths out from that mark is when you determine who has inside right of way to go closer to that mark. And we'll talk more about that. There's also some universal principles in our racing rules that are important to keep in mind. Safety first, of course, and that includes aiding those in danger. If someone needs help, if someone's overboard, whatever, saving a life is way more important than finishing a race first. Fair sailing, we don't cheat in sailboat racing. If you've made a foul, done something wrong, you take a penalty turn or penalty turns. We'll talk more about that to clear or exonerate yourself. If you made a mistake in sailing around the course, we admit it. If either try and fix it if you can, tell the race committee. Basically, it's on sailor's honor, and it works really well. And then the final one is avoiding contact. Even if the other boat is wrong, all boats are still responsible for avoiding hitting each other. And related to this, throughout the rules, a boat that has right of way still has to give a give way boat sufficient room to keep clear. You can't make a change in course so suddenly that the give way boat isn't able to keep clear of you. So with all of that in mind, ready, set, let's race. Jeremy.
So the first part of a race is often the start or the pre-start section of it. So on keel boats, you'll have a lot of 5-minute starting sequences. In smaller dinghies, you might end up with a 3-minute sequence. But because our audience for this is primarily people that we're expecting to be racing J22s, we're going to talk about that 5-minute starting sequence. And part of these starting sequences are a way to allow everybody to know when something's going to happen. And so we use watches. I have one here. Julian, you got a watch on. Julian's got one. Nathan, you got a watch. You got one there. Yeah. They're a really important piece of racing equipment so that you can be on the line on time at the start. And the way that you're going to get that done is prior to your start, your race committee is going to blow a lot of signals. And that's going to indicate to you hey, I need to get out my first piece of racing equipment here and get ready to set a 5-minute start on my watch. Then they're going to give you a 5-minute warning where they put your class flag up. This class flag is to indicate who is starting if you were to have multiple classes on the line. So if you were to have J22s and Etchels and J24s, what are some other common fleets around here?
Just the general purpose.
Mostly we have
racing A, racing B.
Yeah.
White sails A, white sails B.
Sweet. So they'll put up a flag and you need to know your class flag so that you know it's your start. So when you see that and hear that 5-minute warning, you hit the start on your watch and get rolling into the start sequence with everybody. They're going to wait another minute before they give you another signal, and this will be your 4-minute prep signal. And at this point, the prep flag or the P flag is going to go up. And it's going to tell you, hey, it's been 1 minute. If you are not quite on your watch, you can sync your watch up, but you have 4 minutes till your start. After that, it's a full 3 minutes that you got to wait before you get any more time information from the committee boat, which will be 1 minute, and your prep flag will come down with 1 blast of a horn. And the last signal that you get is go. And at that point, you want to be on the line, moving well. And the line is going to be defined as...
They can't see that.
Oh, you can't. Between, in the bottom right of your screen, a mark and a race committee boat. And that race committee boat will be who is blowing the whistles and who's been displaying the flags for you.
So we've got a video here showing a start with the 420 dinghies. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to.
Different, yeah, different than what you'll be racing. But this is the practice video that I had so that you guys could see some boats gathering up on a start line. The orange mark that's in the water here is actually substituting for the race committee boat because it makes it a little easier for me when I'm coaching to not have my boat anchored while I'm coaching starts. So we're probably under 30 seconds here, and we can see all these boats lining up. They're able to stop their boats and accelerate them a little quicker than you'll be able to do with your J22. So technically, maybe not a lot to learn, but we wanted you to see some boats approaching in for a start here.
You'll note everyone here has come in to being on starboard tack at the start, partly because of that rule that starboard has right of way over port. And there they go.
They're off.
I'm sorry. Let me advance the slide here. So when we think about starting, even before the starting sequence and in the sequence, we should be thinking about where on the starting line we want to start. We can start anywhere between the pin end and the race committee. And so it's important to figure out where on that starting line you want to start, which typically will be closer to the what we call the favored end. And that'll depend on the wind and sometimes current and so forth. So it's important to decide which end of the starting line you want to target. And in this example here, one of the ways to do that is to go up to the line and then luff the boat into the wind. And if your bow is pointed more towards the pin end, as it is in this example, so there's less than 90 degrees between the boat and the line towards the pin end, and more than 90 degrees towards the committee boat, with the boat pointed straight into the wind, that tells you that the pin end is going to be the favored end. And so ideally, you'd want to start closer to this end because that gets you further upwind, closer to the next mark that you're going to. And let's discuss a little bit about the rules. I'll let Jeremy take it from here.
So you've done all this work. You've set your watch. You've checked the favored end. And now you're like in that grouping of other boats and you have to avoid each other, right? And so one of the most common things that we see on the start line is rule 11 on the same tack overlapped, or also talked about as windward and leeward boat. So we're going to start with the example on the left. And you have the yellow boat, which is like soon to be the leeward boat coming from behind. They become overlapped to the with the red boat. And because they're the leeward boat, the boat further from the wind, they have rights to like continue heading up as far as they want and like come back down when they'd like, as long as they're giving the other boat room to respond. And so in this case, yellow is heading red up over the line. Red is doing a nice job avoiding. And so it'd be green light, no foul, right? But if you're the red boat in that position, you need to be aware that the boat below you is allowed to head you up, head to wind. Another like scenario that we see this happening is on the right, and it kind of gets nicknamed barging. And that's when this windward leeward situation happens just coming into the stern of a committee boat. And if you're the windward boat here, you need to be extra careful because you don't want to hit the committee boat and you have to avoid the red boat. And so your option here is probably to like luff before you get to the committee boat and tack away and kind of like cycle back through into the line.
Yeah, if there's no room, that red boat can go as high as they want, so they can come an inch away from the committee boat and not leave any room for the purple boat to fit there. And that is legal. So what do you do if there's a leeward boat and they're pushing you up and you end up over the line early, or you just misjudge the starting time? In most races, at that point, you need to keep clear of other boats because you've now sort of commit. You're on the course side at the start, which isn't a valid start. And as you do that, you need to then duck your boat completely to the opposite side of the starting line, away from the course side of the starting line. And then you are clear to go ahead and restart correctly at that point. Different ways to do that. You can see here, this green boat might tack, come back to the line. There's no boats here, so they have room to do this. Duck the line and then head on up to cross the line correctly after the start. The white boat can do the similar sort of thing here, or they may choose to go around either end of the line and restart correctly in that way as well. And in certain races, certain sailing instructions, they will actually require you to go around the end. But most of the time, just ducking below the line is sufficient. So now we're off.
We're off. We made it out of the start. We avoided some lured boats. We restarted because we were too early and got pushed over. And now the question is, what are we looking for on our upwind, right? What factors like are going into our heads to help give us a faster upwind? And so one of the first things that I'm thinking about is pressure variation, right? Where is there more breeze? And you can kind of see it float down the course in the form of like darker or more rippled water. And the reason that pressure variation is so important is more pressure equals more boat speed, right? So if I sail away from pressure and Julian sails to pressure, he's probably going to beat me on the upwind, right? Especially after I restarted, right? So we're looking to get to pressure. And pressure also often will bring wind shifts. And this is another thing that we want to be aware of. If we are on starboard tack and the wind shifts to the right, our bow is going to like move down relative to the mark. And this is called getting headed. And when you get headed, it's often a good idea if you have the ability to tack, and then you're on what's called a lift. So if you are sailing along on port and the wind were to shift to the left, I think I mixed this up.
You said
I mixed that up. It's starboard tack.
Yeah, you get headed when it shifts to the left. Sorry, folks. So if it shifts towards your bow, you're going to get headed. If the wind shifts back, you're going to get lifted. You can turn headers into lifts by tacking, which is maybe a little tough to say.
Yeah, another way to look at it here. So we have a progressive wind shift, 1, 2, 3 over time. And what that's causing to happen here is this boat that is on port tack is getting headed, and they're turning as to keep the wind, keep their sails full. They're having to steer this curved course that is taking them further from that windward mark. A starboard tack boat is getting lifted at the same time and getting to turn up, closer towards heading towards that windward mark. So they're on the lifted tack at this point in time.
Thanks for the save there. Another thing that we're thinking about when we're going upwind is current variation. If the current is strong, which it usually tends to be in Casco Bay, when the current is pushing you in the direction that you want, you'd like there to be more current. And so you might sail towards deeper water where you can get more current. And if the current is fighting you, pushing you away from the direction that you'd want to go, you might want to sail towards shallower water, towards less current. And so those are some of the factors that I'm thinking about on my upwinds. The other thing...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the other thing that I'm thinking about on my upwinds is other boats, right? If we have two boats converging, one has to be the giveaway boat and one has to be the keep clear boat. And the way that the rules of sailing have designated it is that the starboard boat is the boat that has right of way, and the port tack boat shall keep clear of the starboard tack boat. And so keeping clear, we kind of have said it has like 3 different ways that you can keep clear. One is ducking the starboard tack boat. which is when you turn away from the wind towards the starboard tacker's stern, with the intention that you are going to sail behind their stern so that they can continue their path forward. You're altering your path and you're keeping clear that way. Another way that you can keep clear of a starboard tacker is tack before they get to you. And so essentially by tacking, you are not going to enter like the line where they will be, and you're keeping clear of them. If you put your tack close enough, maybe you're lee bowing them and able to get them to tack away. But that requires maybe extra practice and comfort with your boat. The third way that you might be keeping clear as a port tacker converging with a starboard tacker is if you're just ahead of them, right? And so this is kind of the duck, but in the opposite direction, where they are naturally on their course gonna be heading behind your stern as you cross them. And if you're far enough ahead, you might choose to tack after crossing them and give them some bad air and slow them down. I guess the other thing, the other thing that I want to note here is we have like a direct quote of Rule 10, and you'll see some words italicized. So if you were to go back later and read the rule book and you want like a very specific definition on anything, if it's italicized, it's mentioned in the definition section, and you can really hone in on what is meant by keep clear.
So what happens if you follow another boat? You were on port tack, you didn't pay enough attention, there was a starboard tack boat, and they had to alter course to avoid hitting you. They may hail protest, but even if they don't hail protest, if you realize that you've fouled them, we play fair anyway. And in both of those scenarios, you can exonerate yourself by taking a 720-degree penalty turn. So that's turning your boat around twice. It's going to include 2 tacks and 2 jibes. And you need to do this after getting well clear of other boats and as soon after the incident as possible.
And can I clarify there that those jibes, those tacks and jibes, it cannot be tack, tack, jibe, jibe. It has to be done tack, jibe, tack, jibe. To fully complete that circle.
You can start with either a jibe or a tack, but it has to. It can't be 2 jibes in a row.
Yeah. Tack, jibe, or jibe, tack, jibe, tack. And you're basically spinning roughly 720 degrees, completing that. So we're making our way upwind and getting close to that windward mark. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, so we've managed to get off our start line, restart our boat by ducking under it. We've sailed upwind, we've avoided some starboard tackers, and we've made it to up into like the top third of the course, maybe even further at this point. And we're starting to think about this concept that we call a ley line. And a ley line into the windward mark is when there's a port ley line and a starboard ley line into the windward mark. And if we're on the port ley line, it means that we're on port tack, heading on our close hauled course, and we're fetching the mark. We're going to make the mark. The starboard tack ley line is usually the ley line that you'll be trying to be on going into the mark, because you're going to leave the mark to port as you round it. Is the line that, while you're sailing on a close hauled course, has you making the mark. So that's kind of demonstrated on this picture that we have on the left. So we would say that that blue boat is on ley line, and we might say that the yellow boat has overstood the ley line. They've gone past the ley line, and they're sailing extra distance. And you don't want to sail extra distance because it takes more time and you're racing.
So thinking about the rules here, I mentioned in the beginning, there's a 3 boat length circle around the mark. and that's going to determine who can go around the mark first or inside, but relative to the positions of the boats when they reach that 3 boat length circle. So in the top graphic here, you've got a port tack boat that's coming in on essentially on the port tack ley line, and a starboard tack boat coming in on the starboard tack ley line. Starboard has right of way over port, and the port tack boat must give way. They are not entitled to room to round that mark because we're inside that 3 boat length circle at this point. So their only real option is going to be to duck behind, either to slow down enough that they can go behind boat B, or duck behind them and then tack to go around the mark. If we're outside that 3 boat length circle, then a port tack boat can come and tack into a leeward position to a boat that's already on that ley line into the mark. And if that overlap, that is some part of boat A is overlapped with some part of boat B, if we were to draw a perpendicular line from the stern of boat B, it's landing somewhere on boat A or vice versa. Then boat A is now going to be entitled to room to go around the mark inside of boat B. And that's determined by that overlap being identified 3 boat lengths from the mark. So let's take a look at a quick video here of some boats going around a windward mark. You can see the windward mark there in orange. Again, this is the 420 dinghies, and they're coming up towards the ley line. This boat 14 closest to us has actually overstood the ley line a little bit. Other boats that are a little closer to the mark are able to judge it a little better. And boat 13 there just had to duck around because they were coming in on port tack and did not have room. And once we get around that windward mark, now it's time to ease the sails out and head downwind. I don't know why this is not letting me advance the slide. There we go. What happened here? Okay. So go ahead.
I was going to say, before you head downwind, if you rounded that windward mark, but you touched it, it is unfortunately a penalty that you have to take, right? But this time, instead of it being a 2-turn penalty, as if you had fouled the boat, it is only a 1-turn penalty. So half is bad. So to complete that penalty, you need to sail well clear of other boats, which often means like reaching off to the side so that other boats that are rounding behind you are able to have clean roundings themselves, and then taking your 1 tack and 1 jibe penalty, or you could jibe then tack, whichever way your boat decides they want to take that penalty. They can take it. Now, it happens. Sometimes you approach the mark on the wrong side, you forget which way you're going around it, you miss the mark. Unfortunately for you, rounding it the wrong way does mean that you miss it. And as such, you can't quite go downwind yet. You have to instead unwind yourself back around the mark and then round it to the correct side. And so those are 2 things that could get hectic for you around the windward mark. But if you miss it, don't worry, you can go back and round it properly. And so now, finally, after taking our penalty turn at the windward mark, we're able to head downwind. And on our downwind, we're paying attention to similar things that we were on our upwind. We're paying attention to the current. If it's helping us, we want to be in more of it. If it's hurting us, we want to be in less of it. We're paying attention to pressure. I pretty much always want to be in more pressure until it gets too windy, right? But so I have somebody on my boat looking behind, calling out where they see puffs floating down the course. You can see it physically on the water, and you might also be able to see it in the boats that you're beating or their speed coming downwind. If they're spread out a little bit, you might be able to see the pressure in their speed. You also have to kind of make a determination about your course. Are you going to sail less distance, maybe going slower, or are you going to kind of heat your boat up closer to a reach, get a little more power in your sail and try to go a little faster? And I think a lot of that is dependent on the pressure that you're in and the boats around you as well.
And it also can depend on what type of boat you're sailing and how well it goes straight downwind versus reach.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, asymmetrical spinnakers like to be on a hotter angle, more towards their reach, and symmetrical spinnakers like to be lower as a general rule of thumb and closer to downwind.
and if we're sailing with just the jib and a main, you can often wing that jib out and sail straight downwind as well.
And then we're also thinking about on the downwind leg, we're going to add this in, but we're also thinking about it on the upwind, but we'll talk about it for the downwind leg, is clean air. So the idea is that if the air is touching other people's sails before it touches your sail, it's dirty air, it's disturbed, it's not flowing as fast, it's not flowing as well. And so you're going to go slower if you're in bad air. You want to have clean air. Julian, you had an awesome rule of thumb for this the other day. Was it 5 mast lengths?
That's about right. Yeah.
Yep. So 5 mast lengths behind your boat. If there's another boat, you're probably...
And your Windex is pointing at them.
And your Windex is pointing at them. Yes. You're probably in bad air. And your options when you're in bad air are usually to come up more to a reach to get sideways of where that bad air column is. Or it could be to jibe away and in that way start to move away from that bad air column as well.
So now we're going to be coming into that leeward mark that we need to round. And there's a couple of things to think about as we do that. The first one here is another quick video with 2 boats rounding this leeward mark in 2 different ways. The first boat that's coming in is coming in really close to that mark. And so they're coming in tight, and then they end up turning a bit wide and kind of they make some distance. And the second boat turned wide to the mark and now has come in tight. And Jeremy, what should we be aiming to do?
So I think the tactical rounding is the wide and tight rounding. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to come out more upwind than if you had rounded tight and then wide. And because your next leg is going upwind, you want to have a nice advantage heading into that leg.
Just going to show you guys again here at the end. This boat came in wide and then tight. This boat came in tight and then wide, a little bit ahead of them. But we can see from this angle, these folks have managed to get themselves further upwind.
Yeah, like a boat length or so, right? And every boat length counts. So this was a great example of like 2 boats that were able to kind of round the leeward mark with no traffic, right? They're both there, but they're not close together. So in racing, though, you don't always get to just be away from other boats when you round your leeward mark. You might be more congested. And so this is where we're going to get more into Rule 18, which we kind of touched on earlier, going into the windward mark, deciding like, you know, who gets to go right at the mark. Is it the leeward boat or is it the inside boat? And so the way that this works is if you have overlap with another boat and you are to the inside, to the mark side of that boat, you get to round that mark in a seaman-like manner. So which means that you get to sail to the mark and turn up and round it. and that other boat has to give you that room. So in the bottom right, you can see the A boat and the B boat, that even though that A boat is the lured boat, because they have entered the zone overlapped, they have to give that B boat room to go around that mark. And we have,
and this applies whether we're going to jibe around the mark, as is in the case on the left here, or just head up, as is the case on the right.
Yeah, so like one small piece of minutia on this is Jeremy mentioned rounding the mark in a seaman-like manner. Well, we just discussed sort of the optimal way to round a mark being wide and then tight. That is not generally interpreted as this seaman-like manner under this rule. You can't take as much space as you want. You can only take the space you need. So, like you said, you have to sail to the mark and then round it. You can't sort of do what you want to make an optimal rounding, as we discussed, when there's no boats around you. So wide and tight is optimal, but not technically seaman-like.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And here's another video example of rounding leeward mark with a bunch of boats. So in this example, we've got 5, 12, and 11 here all coming in about at the same time, overlapped with each other.
Which means that 5 is the boat closest to the mark, and so 11 and 12 will have to give them room around here. And 11 will also have to give 12 room.
So you're going to get what we call a pinwheel with all 3 of those boats trying to go around the mark at the same time. And boat 12 and then boat 11 have to sail a substantially longer course and further downwind to do this, which ends up hurting them. And then boat 3 is coming in behind those boats and does not have to do that. So they are able to come in close to that mark and do a wide and tight, as we mentioned, and actually gain quite a bit on those other boats that were actually ahead of them.
And so our recommendation is that if you owe a boat overlap to the inside of you room, is that you kind of slow your boat down, either by taking your spinnaker down a little early, maybe sheeting in your mainsail so you're not moving as fast, maybe a little luff on the jib. You slow your boat down so that inside boat can be ahead of you, and then you can follow them around the mark in a wide and tight fashion and not lose out to the boats behind you.
So to wrap up our course, we are now headed, in this case, back upwind towards the finish. It could be an upwind finish, as we'll demonstrate here. It could be a downwind finish, as we discussed early on when I gave that example course. But basically, your goal is to get to that finish line as quickly as you can and sail through it. And again, the line will typically be between the committee boat and a mark. It may or may not be the starting line, depending on the course that you're sailing. And similar to a windward mark, you also have ley lines for a finish line extending from each end of that line. So in this example, boat blue is actually outside of the left end ley line to that pin, so they've overstayed that. They've sailed further in this direction to the left than they needed to in order to, and therefore sailed a longer course to that finish line. Green is probably going to need to do another tack in order to reach the finish line, and red is on the ley line for that pin. And I'll just mention tactically, it's common when you, especially if you're really tight with another boat, when you get very close to the finish line and you have a bunch of speed, you can actually point your bow up to luff and get to that line a little bit faster than if you were to just continue sailing on your tack. So with all that in mind, there's a bunch of different things we've talked about today that combined strategy, tactics, and rules. Jeremy, how do you think about these 3 things and the interplay between them?
Yeah, so I think about strategy as the factors that are going to make my game plan for the race. And so my race plan is usually a strategy, and it might be to go left towards the pressure and then take the first lefty that I have back. And so sail in pressure, tack on shifts. That's kind of my strategy for the race. And then the tactics come in when I'm executing my strategy and there's other boats, and I have to make decisions based on where those other boats are and where the strategic factors are that I'm planning for, and kind of manage my strategy around other boats as the tactics. And then the rules are what govern how I'm allowed to handle other boats and how other boats are allowed to handle me so that we avoid collisions. And so the rules dictate kind of how my tactics go. And then I'm trying to use my like tactical relation to other boats to like execute my strategy on the course.
And so in terms of your priorities as you're out there, safety, obviously number one.
Number one,
But then, yeah, thinking about boat speed, trimming your boat to take the best advantage of the wind, weight and balance, all of those things, keeping your boat sailing fast, really, really important. Sailing the course, the correct course, also really important. And then we want to think about our tactics and the rules and so forth related to other boats. And of course, the best thing is have fun. So we haven't talked too much about spinnakers. We've mentioned them a few times. We do race with spinnakers, at least on the Wednesday night races. And here's just a clip from last season of us flying the spinnaker downwind in a pretty good breeze. Definitely a lot of fun. There's a lot more lines, a lot of things to learn, and a lot of teamwork required. So we don't have time to get into that in this presentation, but always happy to go out and work with folks on learning that. A bunch of references at the end here. A bunch of the figures in this were taken from the Rules in Practice, which I really like as a book that graphically shows how these rules matter and affect different boats. And it includes the full list of rules at the end of that book. Obviously, the Racing Rules of Sailing from US Sailing is the printed copy. They also have an app version of it as well. And a bunch of our other graphics came from websites like SailZing, which is another great resource out there. So
also sometimes US Sailing has their rule book behind a paywall, but World Sailing has the rule book free to everybody, and so that'll be on the World Sailing Rules book link if you want to get a copy of that, but you're not a US Sailing member.
There's some like small variations, but it kind of doesn't matter. These primary rules are the same.
Yeah, my impression is there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
There might be in some of the appendixes, but the like base set of rules should be.
Yeah. No, definitely learning the World Sailing Rules wasn't going to disadvantage you. It's just weird, tweaky little definition things that US Sailing might have changed for one reason or another. So that's why it's separate. But cool. So I know, Nathan, you have a bunch of slides that we can pull into if we need to. I think we can just let everybody kind of come back into the room. Happy to have folks come off video now as we ask and answer questions here. I have one that Carol posed to us just before we got started about how to get involved. So you've taken this course now. You're going to study a little bit on some of the rules, and you're curious to get on a boat and start racing with people. You may not know someone who actively does this. Maybe you used to, but they've moved away, or you don't have access to that anymore. Well, you could go through the SailMaine boats. They race on Wednesdays. The people that have access to those boats, the program, as I understand, it's called Port Pass. So they paid to be able to use those, and they are often looking for crew and people to sail with. Ben Lewis opened up the WhatsApp for those Port Pass folks to reach out if they have crewing needs. We want people on their boat. So I think he sent out an email. You can join that group. That's one way. The other boats that race on Wednesdays, they're handicap racing, so they're all different types of boats. Sometimes there's a couple of the same fleet, but regardless, those boats come from the different clubs. It's mostly Centerboard Yacht Club, which is right across the Fore River in South Portland. Those folks down there are really friendly too, so you can kind of jump around and get on some different boats, you can reach out to the centerboard crew crew list. I think it's on Regatta Man, right? Justin, put your name out there, and there's people looking for crew all the time on different types of boats. I found Justin wandering down the dock at centerboard 3 years ago and started racing with him. So it's easy, and you make friends. I highly recommend you going out and doing that. And there's a bunch of other boats that race on different days of the weeks in different places. So once you start getting into it and people see that you're engaged, and honestly, the most important thing is just consistency, showing up and learning the sail with different people. If you can show up every week, it kind of doesn't matter how good you are, as long as you've got a good attitude and keep going, and people will be happy to have you back. So yeah, I encourage you to get involved. There's lots of ways to reach out to myself or Nathan or the folks at Centerboard if you want to get on a boat. Yeah, any other questions? We can either people can just come off mute, or we can use the hand function, whatever we want. We can dive into some of the rules or different strategy. Nathan's got a bunch of stuff in his back pocket to review as questions come up. Don't be shy now.
I guess we've overwhelmed you here a little bit. It's a lot to think about, I understand.
These
Sorry, can I just ask you to repeat something that I didn't understand the first time? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
So when you were talking about rounding the windward mark, and there was a slide with a bunch of examples, a bunch of different images. So there was the one situation where the boat coming in on a port tack had to duck the other boat rather than getting mark room, and I didn't understand why.
So, you can tack in the zone, and as long as you don't head so this is like how Rule 18 gets written out, and I forget if this is like 18 point, which part of 18 it is, but that port tack boat can tack in the zone as long as they don't head that starboard tack boat above a close hauled course and still round that mark. The tricky part here is that if you are tacking in the zone and you head that boat above a close hauled course, you're going to get a penalty on you. And if you take that to the room, it's pretty unlikely that you'll win the protest, is what I would say. And so I think part of this is like, in practice, you should duck that boat and save yourself a headache of a protest hearing.
Yeah. The actual rule is if a boat passes head to wind from port to starboard tack in the zone of a mark that is to be left to port, which is the case here. Rule 18.2, the inside boat being owed mark room, does not apply between her and that starboard tack boat that's fetching the mark. And if the other boat has been on starboard tack since entering the zone, the boat that passed head to wind, the one that tacked, shall not cause the other boat to sail above a close hauled course to avoid contact, just as Jeremy said, and shall give mark room if the other boat becomes overlapped inside of her. Does that help?
That does. That's all really helpful, actually. I think I get it now. I'm like squinting at the that does help.
Yes. Sorry.
I was going to say, these slides been linked on the SailMaine website, so you can sort of click into any of these images if you like the way Nathan's and Jeremy have sort of laid it out here. You can review it again, and this recording will be available on the YouTube page.
So it's really the tacking in the zone that's the problem,
right
there.
Yeah.
So if you go to the image just below and you have tacked outside the zone and established overlap going into the zone, if you get close to the ley line, you're allowed to head up above close haul. Then that boat B has to also come up above close haul to allow you to get around the mark. So yeah, it's just you do or don't, you are or aren't owed mark room, and it's sort of it's a very gray area, and it's not something you want to it's kind of like barging in that you just shouldn't be. It's like you shouldn't be doing it, but and you generally will lose the argument, even if maybe you did kind of have enough room, and that other boat says they had to come down for you. It's you're in the wrong generally, so it's on the onus is on you to prove to be correct, and it's a bad place to put yourself in.
The protest committee is probably going to wind it backwards to where your two stories agree, which is going to be you on port and them on starboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a quick question, or just I think a clarification. To use the J22s or to participate using a J22, you'd be a crew for someone who has the port pass and do it on the Wednesday nights.
Yeah, if you
But
want
if
to race, yep.
Yeah. If
Uh-huh.
say if you got to a point in the season where you wanted to take out a boat and race, is that a possibility, or do you have to have that port pass to, or are the boats all spoken for the season, sort of? I guess I'm just wondering, like, if there was a point at which you were like, oh, I'm ready, I want to try it, how would that work?
My impression is that that would be a question that Ben Lewis would have to answer.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if Aaron, do you have insight on how that works?
I mean, Ben can speak to it better than I can, but if he's not here, uh, so the crews who are going to use the J22s for Wednesday night racing, book at the beginning of the season, and there's not a lot of extra boats available most of the time, so you sort of have to commit from the beginning, like express your interest early. Um, but also there, just today, I think he started this WhatsApp group or opened up the WhatsApp group to more people or something to find places where you could be crew on different boats, to connect with people who have the boats already. So that could be helpful.
The other thing I would say, so for the racing folks, it's you have a port pass, but then you also sign up in, I forget when we did it, in February or something, for racing the boats during the Wednesday night series. It's an additional $300 to do that on top of the port pass. Um, the but the other thing about it is racing is every Wednesday night, and it's most skippers do not race their boat every single week of the season because there's vacations, there's other things happening. But we've basically purchased that boat. So another certified skipper, as in a SailMaine recognized skipper who can take out a boat, can represent that sailing team for a given week. And I usually have a couple skippers that rotate through my boat over the course of the season on days that I can't make it. So that's another way to jump in, especially if you've established that relationship with a skipper, and having the boat out there for a race is always better than not having it race, because if it doesn't race, it gets the score of the total number of boats plus one. And even if you're the very last boat finishing, that's still 1 point better than that. So always better to have your boat race, even if you're not on it, is how I look at it.
Yeah. So Ben, I don't know if you caught the
I
question.
missed that question, but I'm happy to chime in if need be. That was a good answer, but let me know if I miss anything.
So
No,
the question was actually, Jenny, why don't you just repeat your question?
Yeah, and actually, Nathan, you just answered it totally. So it was more if, like, midway through you're crewing and participating, as there are opportunities on the Wednesday night races, but say you wanted to try skippering later in the season, how would that work? Would there be an opportunity to? And Nathan just explained that, yeah, I mean, there might be, if you were crewing on one of the boats kind of regularly and that skipper took a week off, you might jump in and have that opportunity. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's all correct. And I guess I'll just add that the Wednesday nights I've only been at SailMaine for, I don't know, this will be my fourth summer or something. The Wednesday nights, from my experience, are basically we kind of give priority to people who have done it over the years. So there's a lot of boats that have done it for many, many years, and they sail with their kids or their best pal or whoever it is. And it's kind of a set crew, and they do it every week, and it can be hard to crack into that Wednesday night group if you don't know the people well or whatever it may be. And that's one of the reasons why we started the Monday night racing this year. Just because Wednesday is just a little trickier to get into, and we wanted to have more opportunities. So Monday nights this year, we will have more racing, hosted by SailMaine. So it's a little more low key. There's not a bunch of big cruising boats, intimidating you at the starting line. So J22s will be racing along with 420s and some other dinghies. And there's a few boats spoken for. It's sort of like a mini corporate group. There's a few, like there's a boat from Wex and a few other places. Um, but there's also some opportunities for people to just grab a J22. There's a drop-in boat, and there's maybe like one or two open boats if someone wanted to book a boat for Monday night. Just shoot me an email and I could probably get you in there.
And I don't know, Jeremy, do you want to talk at all about taking the J22s out for weekend regattas as well? Or, sorry, not Jeremy, Ben is who I meant
Oh
to.
yeah, I can talk about that. Yes, so J22s are available for the sort of like larger Gamora race series that happens through the summer. Um, one in particular we'd love to get some boats in is the Centerboard Regatta, which is June 15th, Justin, is that right? It's the Saturday after Made in Maine.
Yeah, June
14th.
14,
June
14.
14th.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So we'd love to get some J22s in that, and then there's other various regattas through the year, through the summer, excuse me, where you can rent a J22 and race those Saturday races for sure.
Certainly the SailMaine fundraiser regatta in August.
Yes, that's like a whole another sort of puzzle where we'll put that out pretty soon. So August 9th is SailMane's annual big fundraiser, which is a little festival, regatta, exhibition of painted sails, party afterwards and so on. But if you wanted to race a J22, we'll put that out pretty soon and you can sign up for that. But sort of part of that, weekend is that if you want to race, you also need to raise money. Sounds a little more complicated than just a normal Saturday, but let me know if you want to get involved in that, and we'll get you out there for sure.
I have I have one question or maybe a suggestion. A lot of wannabe racers have no experience with using a spinnaker. Um, would it be possible to have organize a workshop or just a few hours sometime to get more familiar with how to use the spinnaker, how to get it up and down, and how to tack?
Yep.
Or sorry, jibe. Because when it's during the race, that's a little hard.
Absolutely agree. During the race is not the time to be flying a spinnaker for the first time.
That's
And I often take newish crew out or a mix of new and more experienced crew. We almost always will launch and fly the spinnaker on the way to the starting line just to give everyone at least a quick chance to see what's going on and make sure all the lines are run in the right place and all of that. And then I've informally gone out and sailed with a few of the other folks who are racing or learning to race and just kind of done practice sailing upwind and downwind with them and working with them on that. And I'm fairly busy, but always open to trying to find a time to do that with folks. But Ben, I don't know if you have any thoughts on something more formal on spinnaker flying that we could
Yeah,
do.
and a few people have asked about not specifically spinnakers, but just about how can we get on a boat and kind of practice our racing skills before we jump into offering ourselves up as crew. So I think that's a great idea, Yos. Maybe we could try to organize sort of a mini racing primer day where we get a few volunteer skippers who like to race and offer some slots to people to sign up and go out and sail around for 2 or 3 hours and maybe practice a few starts and set the spinnaker a few times and see what shakes out there. So I think that's a really cool idea. Maybe we could try to do that in early June.
Great, good.
Anything else we confused you on? Any other ideas you want to share with folks here? Any things you think about when you race? If you're already a racer?
Well, good, Nathan, Jeremy. I think you guys gave a really good summary. I like the way you took it around the course. That was a really intuitive way to sort of think about things. So thank you both. You did a great job putting us together. And I think we can give it a call there. Thanks for everybody that attended. This is why we do it. So glad you're all here and hope you take something away from today. Feel free to follow up with Nathan or any of the SailMaine staff. Yeah, if you have any other questions after this that come up and you think of them. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody.
Good night, all.
Night. Bye.